There is a kind of steadiness that doesn't come from effort. It doesn't depend on circumstances being calm. It doesn't require things to be resolved. It's already here, often unnoticed, because it isn't dramatic. Most people think stability comes after everything settles, after life slows down, after answers arrive, but quiet stability appears before that. It's the part of you that remains unchanged, even while thoughts move, even while emotions rise and fall, even while life continues around you. If you've been waiting to feel stable, waiting for the right conditions, you may have overlooked the fact that something in you has never been unstable at all. Pause for a moment, not to do anything, just to notice. Notice the simple fact that you are here. Breathing happens without instruction. The body holds itself without constant direction. Awareness remains, even when nothing is being focused on. That is stability. Not rigid, not controlled, just present. Quiet stability doesn't feel like strength. It doesn't feel like peace either. It feels neutral, ordinary, almost unremarkable. And because of that, it's easy to miss. But this is what allows everything else to move safely. You don't have to hold this stability. You don't have to maintain it. It doesn't disappear when attention drifts. It was here before this moment. It will be here after. If your life feels uncertain right now, if things feel unresolved, see if you can sense the difference between what is changing and what is simply aware of the change. The part that notices movement is not moving. The part that notices uncertainty is not uncertain. This is not something to understand. It's something to quietly recognize. Nothing needs to settle. Nothing needs to stop. Quiet stability is already functioning, silently, beneath it all. Stay here for a few breaths. No improvement required. No adjustment needed. Just allow yourself to sense what does not shift, even while everything else does. Stability is often imagined as something you must hold on to, as if it requires constant attention to stay intact. But quiet stability does not need reinforcement. It doesn't weaken when attention moves away. It doesn't strengthen when attention returns. It simply remains. Notice how much effort is usually spent trying to stay balanced, mentally, emotionally, energetically. Small adjustments, internal corrections, subtle bracing, all of that effort is learned. It's adaptive and it's understandable, but it isn't required here. Remaining doesn't mean freezing. It doesn't mean becoming passive or disengaged. It means not leaving your center when movement happens. Thoughts can continue. Sensations can shift. Life can stay active. Remaining is not the absence of movement. It's the absence of displacement. There is a part of you that does not lean forward. When something needs attention, it does not pull back. When something feels uncomfortable, it stays where it is. You don't need to locate this precisely. You don't need to name it. If you try to grasp it, it feels elusive. If you stop trying, it's obvious. Remaining feels simple, almost too simple to be significant. It doesn't announce itself with calm. It doesn't arrive as relief. It feels like nothing special, and that's how you know it's real. Let yourself notice how the body is already supported. The ground holds without effort. The structure of the body maintains itself without constant supervision. You are not holding yourself up. Something deeper is doing that quietly. Remaining is allowing that support to be noticed rather than overridden. If the mind wants to wander, let it. If attention shifts, let it. You are not required to follow it. Stability does not come from focus. It comes from not being pulled. Nothing needs to be done to stay here. Remaining happens naturally, When effort relaxes, stay with this sense for a moment. Not as a practice, but as a recognition. Quiet stability is not something you enter. It's what's left when you stop stepping away. Being unmoved does not mean being unaffected. It doesn't mean you stop feeling. It doesn't mean you withdraw from life. It means that what you feel no longer displaces you. Experiences can come and go without pulling you away from yourself. Most movement happens around the center, not within it. Emotions rise, thoughts shift, sensations change, but something deeper does not follow them. Unmoved is not stiff. It's not guarded. It's not resistant. Resistance creates tension. Unmoved feels relaxed. If you check right now, you may notice that even as attention moves, there is no urgency underneath it. Nothing is actually demanding that you react. The body knows how to respond when it's needed. The mind knows how to think when it's useful. But between those moments, there is space. That space is not empty. It's stable. Unmoved doesn't mean nothing happens. It means what happens doesn't carry you with it. You don't have to brace for the next moment. You don't have to anticipate the next shift. Anticipation pulls you forward. Memory pulls you back. Stability lives where neither is required. Notice how awareness doesn't rush ahead to see what's coming next. It doesn't cling to what just happened. It stays where it is. Even if the mind moves, awareness does not travel. This isn't something to hold on to. Trying to remain unmoved creates effort. Instead, notice that you are already here before effort appears. Unmoved is not a state you maintain. It's a condition that's revealed when movement loses its grip. Let this be simple. There is nothing to correct, nothing to deepen, nothing to achieve. Quiet stability does not grow. It does not expand. It stays exactly as it is, steady, while everything else passes through. Stability becomes most apparent when it's felt through the body, not as sensation, but as ground. You don't need to search for grounding. It's already happening. The body is in contact with something solid, a surface, a floor, a chair, the earth beneath it all. That contact does not fluctuate with thought. It does not respond to emotion. It doesn't ask how you're doing. It simply supports. Grounded presence is allowing that support to be felt without commentary, not naming it, not improving it, not using it for calm, just letting it be acknowledged. Often, we try to ground ourselves by focusing, visualizing, or directing attention. But true grounding doesn't require direction. It's passive. You don't ground yourself. You notice that you are already grounded. The body already knows how to distribute weight. Muscles engage and release naturally. Balance is maintained without conscious effort. Even now, you are not floating. Something is holding you. Grounded presence feels quiet because it doesn't need reinforcement. It doesn't come with warmth or heaviness necessarily. Sometimes it feels neutral, sometimes almost blank. That neutrality is not absence, it's reliability. If the mind becomes busy, ground remains. If emotions rise, ground remains. If attention drifts, ground remains. Nothing you experience interferes with this underlying support. You don't have to settle the mind to be grounded. You don't have to slow breathing. You don't have to adjust posture. Those things may happen on their own, but they are not prerequisites. Grounded presence is not a technique. It's a condition. It's what allows movement to happen safely, without instability underneath it. Let yourself rest in the fact that you are being held without effort, without instruction, without doing anything correctly. Quiet stability expresses itself here as simple, undeniable support. Change is not the opposite of stability. Instability is life continues to move, circumstances shift, moods change, the body ages, situations resolve and unravel. Quiet stability does not resist this movement. It doesn't attempt to slow it down or keep it from happening. It stays present within it. Most of the strain people feel around change comes from the belief that stability must be preserved by controlling what happens. But stability isn't located in outcomes. It's located in what does not depend on them. Notice how change is always observed. Even when something feels sudden or disruptive, there is awareness of it. That awareness does not rush. It does not fracture. It doesn't scatter. It remains whole. While change moves through experience, you may notice moments when the mind anticipates loss or the body prepares for disruption. That response is natural. But beneath that response, something is not preparing. Something is simply here. Steady within change means allowing movement without abandoning the center that notices it. You don't need to brace for what's coming next. You don't need to rehearse outcomes. Stability is not a prediction. It's a presence. Even uncertainty occurs within something that is certain. You are aware of not knowing, and that awareness itself is stable. Nothing needs to settle before stability is available. Nothing needs to resolve. Quiet stability is not disturbed by unfinished stories. It does not require clarity. It does not depend on confidence. It remains even while things are unclear. Let yourself recognize that change has never actually removed you from yourself. Experiences pass. You remain. Stability often feels difficult only because effort is added to it. Trying to remain stable creates tension. Trying to stay centered creates movement away from center. Quiet stability does not ask you to maintain anything. It doesn't require monitoring. It doesn't benefit from vigilance. Effort appears when there is a belief that something could be lost. But notice, what you're recognizing here has never been lost. It doesn't weaken with distraction. It doesn't disappear when attention wanders. It doesn't need to be protected. Without effort means allowing awareness to rest where it already is, not holding posture, not managing breath, not correcting experience. The body continues to function. The mind continues to move, and stability remains untouched. This can feel unfamiliar because effort has been associated with safety for so long. But safety doesn't come from holding on. It comes from discovering that nothing essential requires holding. Quiet stability is effortless because it is fundamental. It doesn't arrive. It doesn't deepen. It doesn't improve. It's simply present before effort begins and after effort fades. Let yourself stop checking. There is nothing to confirm, nothing to adjust. You are not drifting away from anything real. Quiet stability does not belong to a moment. It is not something that appears when conditions are right. It doesn't fade when conditions change. It is always here because it is what notices conditions in the first place. You don't carry this stability with you. You don't generate it. You don't return to it. You recognize that you have never left it. This recognition does not create a feeling. It may feel subtle or ordinary or barely noticeable. That's how you know it isn't constructed. Nothing about this needs to be remembered. Nothing needs to be practiced. In daily life, attention will move outward again. Tasks will arise. Conversations will happen. Quiet stability does not disappear when that happens. It doesn't require retreat. It doesn't ask for isolation. It remains present while life continues exactly as it is. You don't need to hold on to this understanding. Understanding is not the point. What you've noticed does not depend on memory. Even forgetting happens within it. If at any time things feel unsettled again, nothing has gone wrong. Stability has not left. It never announces itself. It never demands recognition. It simply remains. Let this be enough. No conclusion needed. No next step required. Quiet stability does not lead anywhere. It stays. And because it stays, everything else is free to move.